Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reimagine series. Welcome back to Reimagine 2021 V6. And the theme of our conference this month is Build Crypto Resolutions. So we want to know, what are your new goals for this year in the crypto industry, the blockchain industry? And we also want to know what are going to be the key solutions that are actually going to come to life this year. We think, as a response to all the different things happening in our world, it seems to be good for crypto. I'm very excited to be joined by a returning guest. We have Bradley Camp, who's the co-founder of Unstoppable Domains. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us here today, and welcome back to the show. How have you been since the last time we spoke to you? What are your thoughts? I just want to ask you right away. About how the crypto market has exploded in the past 1 or 2 months, the holiday time. What do you think about such the fast incremental increase? Since we last spoke to you.
Oh, thanks a bunch for having me back. So let's start with the crazy crypto run here. So I mean, it's exciting. Uh, the way I see it is that it's validation. I think what's been happening over the past couple of years is a ton of building across a whole bunch of different areas. I think that the ecosystem of applications that have been built on blockchains over the past couple of years, there's just so many different whole areas and industries that have been developing, and this is the result of that labor. Is that it? The price moves slow, but that's an indicator that we finally gotten there. We finally delivered on some real stuff that people are using, and that got everyone excited, probably overexcited.
Well, it's always good to be overexcited. And, we've had you on the show before, and I know you've talked about what Unstoppable Domains is. What I want to get into today is, talk a lot about the community initiatives, I would say, that you all are working on, and as well as get into, I guess, some data points maybe on what you actually see, building a product for, I would say, a new wave of consumers. So first, I want to start off by asking you, with these price increases, it also drives things up like the transaction costs on Ethereum, right? So when new users are making their way into the market and maybe starting off with something like acquiring a domain, maybe now even before buying their first crypto, because that's the way I see a lot of these tools. I don't know if you see them the same way. Your product you're working on. What is your response to that? Because correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm a new user, can you kind of walk me through how I would buy a uncensorable domain, and do I need to worry about things like these high transaction costs?
So yeah, so you got to you hit on something pretty big. So we build domain names on blockchains. Domain names are not part of traditional DNS, not like a .com. Domain names are stored inside of your cryptocurrency wallet by you, and that's what makes them uncensorable. Unstoppable domains can't take them away from you. Nobody else can move them around or make updates other than the person with the private key. But we do, and we are able to pay for transactions on behalf of users. We have that feature enabled, and so we do. And so this problem is not directly impacting users yet, but I would say that it is something that's an issue across the application ecosystem, across the Ethereum ecosystem, and everyone's essentially working on fixes right now. So that's the phase we're in. We're in the phase where the network has gotten too popular, and now it's a little bit expensive to use, and that's not amazing for new users. So I think a lot of new users right now are coming into what is like a slightly less functioning network than maybe they would have seen a year ago. Um, so we got some work to do.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm glad that you are covering those transaction costs for users at the beginning, because even for people that have been in the space, I always tell people that this is like a very huge, wide space just because you've been in the industry for a long time. Maybe you've just been on the purchasing end, right? But now I want to kind of pivot this conversation and get a little bit deeper and talk about, the product that you're working on. And, I would say you're focusing on the usability aspect, not just, purchasing of some coins, maybe like MicroStrategy. They have their strategy is more so, uh, buying it for inflationary purposes. But can you talk a little bit more about uh, what was Unstoppable Domains? I would say a couple of years ago, and where do you see yourself going now in terms of a lot of the features that you're building out? Has it been the same, or has anything changed in terms of where you see the future now?
So when we started out and we went to market, I think in March of 2019, we started out just with domain names being able to be used for crypto payments. And so the way it works is I've got brad.crypto. You can send me Bitcoin or ETH or dozen. I think we've got like maybe 100 different currencies that you can send. You can send using the domain name. So it's kind of like my universal crypto Venmo account. The difference is that I control the account. There's no Venmo out there that can turn me off. And it also works inside of all of my apps. So right now, inside of, I believe, around 30 wallets, you can type in brad.crypto and send me money. So it's a tool that can work across the entire ecosystem. So we started with this payment use case, and then we moved to you can also use the same domain for a decentralized website, and you're putting up your website content on IPFS or other decentralized storage networks. So you can go visit my blog at brad.crypto, for example. And so, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I didn't actually know that you could. So are you saying that I could buy a domain name and I can then I can configure the, I guess not the DNS, but I don't know what you would call it. It's not the ENS, but anyway, you can configure it so that it's being hosted on IPFS, and that's what gives it its uncensorship ability.
Yeah, so there's like these two pieces to it. There's the domain name and who controls the domain name. And in the traditional world, GoDaddy, your registrar controls it for you. You don't control it, and they can take it away or move it around. In this world, you control the domain name inside of your crypto wallet. It's an NFT, just like a crypto kitty or other collectible. And then on the content side, traditionally you would store it inside of Amazon Web Services, and they would be able to potentially turn you off. Whereas here you're storing it on IPFS, which really just means you're getting a whole bunch of different people to all store an exact copy of your website. So like BitTorrent with a music file or something like that. So that's the principle and the approach. IPFS has been around for several years now. It works great. I think we've got something like 28,000 IPFS websites up right now with domain names. You can view them inside of Opera browser. We've got more browsers coming in 2021. That's going to be a big feature, a big focus for 2021. There's a lot of excitement in the browser world about the decentralized web. I think this is actually going to be a really big narrative in the crypto world in 2021.
Yeah, definitely. And can you talk a little bit about, I guess, outside the crypto world, is there a reason why you chose to specifically go after domains first? I mean, me personally, I always encourage people to just, buy a domain name. I always tell people that it's, at least in the traditional world, one of the closest things that you actually own. Everything else is like subject to a promissory note here or there, or you just don't have any user accounts or control over those. So I'm just wondering, is that why you choose to go after domains first?
So the starting point was actually that there's a problem for blockchains, which is they solve all these problems. They can put users in control, give us back digital property rights that we don't have, free the world from censorship, do all these amazing things, but they're really, really hard to use. And when we looked at what domain names did for IP addresses, getting the consumer internet started, we thought the same thing was going to happen with blockchains. They're too hard to use. We need some sort of human readable name system in order to be able to start using this tech properly and not have to deal with these long addresses, not have to deal with people who have dozens of addresses, et cetera. So it started from, hey, the blockchain community has this problem and domain names could fix it. Once we got started and started learning a lot about the domain name world, which I didn't know very much about until I started working on this company, we realized how messed up the traditional domain name world is and how many problems they have and how there's been just, essentially technology stagnation for almost 30 years. There's been almost no new things happening there. The system is very much almost ground to a halt. The current system they have for enabling new domain name systems to come out, everyone's using the same tech. That tech has all kinds of issues. Like, for example, domain name registrars can get hacked. Pretty recently, GoDaddy was hacked and a bunch of records were changed. And it was used essentially to steal money. And all of this was possible because GoDaddy, the registrar, controls your domain name for you and gives you an account, and therefore there's something to hack. But if that domain name was stored by you on your device with a private key, then somebody would have to go and hack that device. Somebody would have to or physically go get a handle on that device. So it's like moving from your data sitting on somebody's server to your data sitting on your device. It's just completely different power structure. So we realized the possibility to fix the domain name world as the second place, but the first place was help the blockchain world.
I see. That's actually interesting, because me actually being in the industry myself, I kind of thought of it reverse, but that actually makes sense to me once you explain it that way. Even email addresses, they weren't so pretty at the beginning, or the back end technology wasn't so pretty, but now everyone uses a pretty email address. So I think that domains is definitely something that's familiar with people. I want to go back to something that you just mentioned now, because kind of gets into the next topic that I want to talk about. For the people that are in the industry, or even if you're not, there's been a lot of regulations just recently in the past couple of weeks by FinCEN, who regulates a lot of the things in our industries, and also adjacent industries, just anything to do with finance, right? So one of the things they were talking about was implying stricter rules and regulations around making wallets that don't have any know your customer rules. They want to make it so that more of those wallets, that becomes, I think, kind of like a standard. So, you being in a company and leading a company that I would say is maybe opposed to a lot of those things, where do you stand with, I guess, just government regulation? And when it gets into I'll ask it to you in this way: is there a point you have where too much government intervention with rule laws and regulation, you think it can hurt a core product, if it's something like DeFi or uncensorable domains? What do you think about that?
So I think that there's a lot of different areas here, but we're fortunate in some ways, because what we're doing is really not in the same, like, it's not a financial thing. Domain names are, sort of their own category. And I think other collectibles are also in this other category, digital art and things like that. If you're working on a currency, then regulators are going to be they're going to be super interested in that. And if you're handling people's money, storing people's money, they're going to be very interested in that too. So I think those things are the things where you have the most kind of regulatory interest. So we don't really have much of that stuff. We're kind of sitting off to the side somewhere. I think in general, if companies can't innovate in the same way in the US as they can around the world, that could put all of us at a disadvantage. And I think that's the risk with some regulation is that it's very difficult for regulators in a new industry to figure out where the right lines are, because it's probably not the same lines as prior industries, because it's new tech, but it's pretty hard to figure out how to what to do and where to place it. And they've already kind of messed up, like they created that the way the New York created the bit license, it had only like one company apply for several years or something like that. So like they've already made it too tough and had issues previously. So I think that's the downside risk. I hope that the industry is not overly burdened in that way, because it's just better for tech innovation if we can try more things. But for domain names in particular, doesn't really come up in quite the same way. And you can use your domain name with custodial accounts or non-custodial accounts. So if you want to send money from a anonymous self-custody wallet to another anonymous self-custody wallet, you can use a domain name for that. If you want to send it from one exchange that you control to an exchange that your buddy controls, or another exchange that you control, you can also use the domain name for that. So it works for all of these use cases. It's just a matter of, it's an interoperability tool. So my hope would be that as much crypto innovation happens as possible.
Okay, I see. And so even if I were to send money to a domain name, I guess that's still not classified as a financial transaction, or is it? I'm not even sure myself.
Well, the domain name is just a router, so we don't have much control over that part, and it's
Hmm.
just the user who has control over that part. The domain name itself and the activities that you would do with the domain name itself would not be, so far as I can tell, subject to any kind of FinCEN regulations, or it's just not really touched by regulators. Domain names are not really touched by regulators. Now, but all the domain name is a router. So
Hmm.
you can route it from wallet A, self-custody wallet, or wallet B, a custodial exchange or whatever. And whatever rules those accounts have, you're still obligated to those rules. It's really domain name or not. The rules didn't change. The country you lived in didn't change. So I would say it's kind of like, it's not really a factor either way.
Got it. Well, either way, it's still it's very powerful and very just cool in general to think about the concept that, I can own my own, I guess, digital property. It is a form of digital property, and I can do so, I guess, even anonymously. And I think that's also important. As I like how you talked about the hacks. I think those are always good counterpoints, because I think a lot of people forget that there are some consequences to leaving a lot of our sensitive information on centralized institutions or centralized ledgers. Um,
With domain names in particular, there's all kinds of games that get played. Like, for example, France.com was purchased by somebody in, I believe, the 1990s. And then France, the country, decided that they wanted it back. So they went and they convinced essentially US courts to force the domain name into their hands. And now the guy is suing because it's been his property for 2 decades. But they were actually able to, through the courts, take it. And it's just this weird, bizarre system where, because so much of this stuff is sitting inside of the US kind of gets to police the entire internet. Or in even weirder circumstances, let's say you're using a .ly domain name. If you're using a .ly domain name, which some startups use because I think it sounds cool, you're under Libyan law.
hmm.
So there were a whole bunch of websites that were taken down for violating Libyan law, even though they were in Canada. It's just a bizarrely goofy, insecure system that we have. And we've had it for 30 years, and it was fine early on. But as the stakes for the internet have risen, as more resources, more data, more assets, more value has moved onto the internet, the more downsides we have for things not being secure. So the current internet is not secure. Now we've been adding more and more and more value to it year over year. Now the honeypot is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's really breaking. Like the GoDaddy hack was just one example. Twitter had Barack Obama and a whole bunch of other famous people hacked in order to do a scam, and it's all because of the value of those user IDs has gone up so much. Now it's become worth hacking Twitter servers in order to do something with it. So the problem is getting worse as more and more value gets moved to the internet.
Yeah, that's a perfect sentence. Actually, I like the way you explained that. It's very true. As more and more things are happening on the platform, it's definitely true. Have you Are you able to extrapolate any data in terms of, who are your actual core users around the world? Like, what I'm trying to get at is, are there people in other countries that, suffer from censorship resistance, have problems with their, DNS, IP, whatever? We know there are countries out there that have these issues. Have you seen any spike or interest in those subset of users? Because it might actually be easier, or it might be easier to circumnavigate a system with just a domain name that acts as all of these other things that you described, that you could choose to use, right? You could use it as a wallet, or you could use it as this. So I'm just wondering, because in some countries, if they see crypto, they might ban it. But I'm just wondering if you think what you're building can be used in that way.
Definitely. I think that what we're seeing right now and what we would expect to see early on is crypto users. So we're seeing crypto users who have this problem where they want to be able to make crypto transfers easier, and they like to experiment with new tech like the decentralized web. So we're seeing crypto users buying domains and building stuff right now. There may be some folks out there using it more for these censorship related reasons. I would expect that those numbers are still relatively low because the tech is still relatively early. And so when I would expect that that would start happening a lot more is once we see a lot more browser support, which I would expect to see in 2021. So once we have that, then it starts to make a lot more sense for even non-crypto people to start using this as an alternative. Whereas before that, it really makes a bit more sense right now inside the crypto ecosystem.
Got it. And I don't want to get too deep into the technicals, but I do think it's important for the people watching this right now to maybe understand on a foundational layer how what you're building is different than a normal domain, and a normal domain that you would purchase just on Google or something like that. And also, how are you thinking about this in terms of the interoperability? Is it Are you only sticking with Ethereum? Are you looking at, is it even possible to integrate with other chains out there, in a way where you can, I guess it's kind of backwards compatible, where you can just upgrade? Or is that like very tough from what you're building from the ground up?
So in terms of interoperability, it already works with with 100 different chains. You can already send money using Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, really any major cryptocurrency is supported. And the domain name itself is on Ethereum, but the routing, where you actually send your payment, the domain name just acts as a router, and then you can make your payment in Litecoin or any other currency. So it's not that the transaction happens on the Ethereum blockchain; it's just a lookup.
Mm,
So the Ethereum blockchain turns into the equivalent of DNS servers, where you go and if you want to go and find information, someone gives you a domain name, you query the blockchain as your public DNS servers, find the appropriate address or the appropriate information, and then send. So that's all the domain name's doing. So it doesn't really need any interoperability past that. Uh, in terms of like how this is different than traditional DNS, the way to think about traditional DNS is it's a set of servers being managed by a group of people. It's called ICANN. Originally, it was a group of people in LA. It was I think they had like 6 or 7 key holders or something like that. And they were all based in Los Angeles. They've since set it up where I think they've tried to distribute a few of the keys or something like that. They've over time tried to tweak the system a little bit to make it not quite so weird as there's just 5 random guys in LA that control the whole internet. But it's not much past that. And when you want to make an update to it, you as a registrar like GoDaddy or whatever have permission to go and push updates, and you get a license for that. And there's a whole process, and there's a nonprofit organization that runs this and manages this. And so that's the way the traditional system works. And that's the reason why it winds up being kind of functionally whatever the US government wants to happen can wind up happening pretty easily, kind of no matter where the website is. If it's a .com, which is what most people have, that's owned by a US company, VeriSign. So they can pretty much get VeriSign to go and take back a domain, or get the GoDaddy to go and take back a domain, and take down a website if they don't like what's happening. And so can most other governments around the world. So that's the way the current system works. It also has these hacking issues. It's not just about, I mean, the thing that people should keep in mind is that the risk to a system like this is not just about censorship. It's not just, do I have something that somebody might object to? It's also about hacking, which we are all exposed to. Like most of us have domain names and have some business value or whatever else. So that's the traditional system. The way that this is different is our domain name systems are a suite of smart contracts launched on blockchains like Ethereum. Domain names are ERC 721 tokens. They are stored inside of your wallet. Once they have been issued, no one else can move them around. No one can take them away. They're sitting inside of your wallet. You control them completely. When you want to make an update, as in like launch a website, launch a new update to your website, whatever, you sign a message with the private key that controls the domain name, and you write this information to the blockchain. So no one else can make an update to your domain name either. This is completely different than a traditional domain name where your registrar can do whatever they want, or they can get hacked and then some random person can do whatever they want. So it's a completely different security model for the internet. And what that is going to enable is all kinds of user-controlled applications. You're going to have Facebooks in the future where instead of us giving all of our data to them, we're going to control our data ourselves, and we're going to say, hey, future Facebook, I give you permission to use this piece of it for this reason, encrypted, so none of your employees can see it, so that you can give me an application. Maybe I pay you, maybe you pay me for my data, whatever. There's going to be all kinds of different ways that social media is going to work, but fundamentally, you as the user are going to control your own information, your pictures, your friends, whatever, and you're going to be able to carry that around with you on the internet. And if you don't like what this Facebook's doing, there's going to be 10 more that you can use. And you could use 10 of them simultaneously. And all your friends and all your pictures and all the stuff that you want will be there. You won't need to report everything because it won't be sitting on Facebook servers. It'll be sitting on servers you control.
Yeah, I really like the sound of that. And I know in the big picture, what you guys are working on, like domains are just one aspect to it. But I think, with the work that you guys are doing, the fact that you can actually create one, push changes, and actually have that now is really important so that we can conceptualize the future. Otherwise, I remember a couple of years ago in the blockchain industry, everything seemed very far-fetched and everything was an idea. But I don't think that's the case now. And before I get into maybe some of your predictions, and I want to talk about one other thing, I just wanted to ask you, are there any ways where can we find tutorials, or are there actually easy interfaces for, after I purchase my domain, how do I actually go about, setting up IPFS or pushing the code? Would you say it's fairly easy? Is there like easy interfaces to use, or is it complicated?
Yeah, we've made some super easy interfaces. So if you're non-technical, you can upload files. We've got a little WYSIWYG editor where you can build simple websites. It's not as good as Wix or anything like that, like very simple version, but kind of like a very simple version of Wix for the decentralized web. And then if you're a developer and you go and build a full app, then all you need to do is get your IPFS hash, copy and paste it, and sign a message with your private key. And so it's super easy, whether you build an app from scratch or whether you want to just build a website yourself.
Okay, that's awesome. So for anyone watching this, I strongly encourage you to see if your domain is still available, your name, definitely grab your name as soon as possible and kind of experiment with that. Because I do think, a lot of things we're trying to do here with this conference as well, really trying to promote actual real world use cases and getting people to experiment. I think that kind of encompasses a lot of the people in the community, just a lot of experimentation, seeing what works, what doesn't, and curiosity. So that's really cool. As I mentioned in the beginning, our theme of this conference is resolutions, but also in the word resolutions, we have the word solutions. And one thing that we're trying to ask everyone is, last year in the crypto industry, we saw a lot of responses from real world events, companies increasing their interest. This year, what do you think will be the number one solution that crypto or blockchain will address first if it were to be used to replace any of the traditional finance, I'll say parts, just part of it? Do you think this year might be the year where some of these things actually get taken seriously and implemented? Like, I'll give you a quick example. I think Visa said that they want to replace part of their network with the USDC network, I think. So more of that. I just want to get your perspective. What do you think it will be this year specifically?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly it. I think that the thing that's already been happening is store of value. People have been buying crypto because they believe it's going to be a better store of value than traditional currencies. I think that one's obvious, so that one's already happening. I think the next big one is money transfer, value transfer, and that's what currencies are for. And cryptocurrencies are better at that than traditional payment networks. They're better, faster, cheaper. So I think it's inevitable that companies will start to use them for transfer. And I believe I know everybody's been talking up regulation lately, and I'm no expert at this, but I believe that there was actually a law that was just changed in the U.S. that enables banks to be able to use things like USDC for transfers. So there's been a lot of FUD going on around the regulation, but quietly, there was probably some of the most bullish regulation imaginable for crypto got dropped in over the past few weeks here, where now all of a sudden it's legal for banks to move money between each other using blockchains like Ethereum, and interbank transfer is most of the money transfer in the world. So that's most of the value is banks to banks. So if that actually starts happening in 2021, that's going to be just a complete game changer. And I think it will, even if it's not bank to bank, I think it will be company to company, individual to individual. I think we're just going to start seeing it more and more. So that's my prediction for 2021. That's the reason why we focused in on this problem of domain names, because we thought that this can solve this problem of making crypto transfers easier. And that this is the next thing that's going to happen in crypto after people just buying it to store it because they believe the price is going to go up.
Yep, it's certainly easier than going to some of these banks right now that are either closed or, just not operating. They're not operating in the way that people might need them. Honestly, a lot of people out there are suffering or going through different things, and they kind of need their money now, or they need to help families in different countries. So, I think I would agree with you there. There might be an edge that gets crossed, and people actually use it, maybe not even just for the crypto reasons, these other macro reasons that cause you to use crypto. That's the way I've sort of been thinking about it lately. But before I let you go here today, I do want to get into one more topic, because we talked a lot about domains, the structure, and I think it's really important. But I want people to know that there's also a larger picture on what you guys are working on and contributing to. I recently heard about this grants program that you all have started up, and I believe it's grown to 5 million right now, and it's there to support a lot of things in the ecosystem. Can you sort of talk us through more details on what this initiative is, why you think it's so important for your company to contribute in this way, and what can we expect in the future for things like this?
One of the things that I think has been a problem in the crypto world for a while has been interoperability, making all of these applications easily connect with each other, and getting crypto into more applications in general. And so what we've been very focused on and what makes domains useful is the fact that they work everywhere. So we think that the real thing that we're building here is an ecosystem of people who have domain names and applications where you can use domain names. And so we're working on both. And so this means we want every crypto wallet to support sending of money using domain names, every crypto exchange, every browser, every other web tool. So there's just a huge a pool of companies, also dApps, a huge pool of companies that could benefit from this tech, and it becomes more useful to all of these apps the more apps that use it. So domain names are more useful to wallet A if wallets B through Z also support it. That's the reason why we've been investing so much in making sure that essentially every app supports domain names.
Got it. And are these grants just open grants? Are you looking for more people to apply to them, or is it more with companies that might integrate your domain system or something like that?
Whether it's companies or whether it's just one or two developers, if you have an app where your users could use domain names, please apply. Please reach out.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really great initiative. So thank you for you and your team for doing that, supporting the ecosystem. I think that's one of the greatest things about our ecosystem. Even competitors, so to speak, we come together and there are commonalities that we can support. And I think that's something to be proud of compared to the traditional system. They're always competing. But Bradley, thank you so much for joining us here again on the Reimagine series. It was really great speaking to you. And I encourage everyone to check out Unstoppable Domains. Get your domain, reserve your domain. And Bradley, if you have any last words to say, but other than that, it was really great speaking with you.
Thanks a bunch for having me. And we just encourage everyone to check out unstoppabledomains.com. You can search around for domains or follow us on Twitter at UnstoppableWeb. You can see what we've been up to.
Thank you, Bradley.